The Freedom Convoy of Bitcoin donations have been frozen and seized. Bitcoin was supposed to be a financial lifeline for vaccine mandate protesters in Canada. That hasn't exactly worked out to plan. Yes, one of the members of the group was holding on to the Bitcoin, getting ready to distribute it to the truckers, when suddenly it was seized by the Canadian government. Mike Dupree, what do you think about the attempt to raise Bitcoin donations for truckers in Canada and how it spectacularly failed as predicted on this show?
I think it's ridiculous. And I think there was already some DAOs and some Bitcoin donations and crypto donations, both for Ukraine and for the Canadian truckers. And like this GoFundMe people who arbitrarily, they didn't even refund everyone initially. They just arbitrarily froze their money. As a custodian of Bitcoin with the ATMs at points, if we did that, they'd throw my ass in jail. So I don't understand how it's acceptable at all. So let's use DAOs. Let's find ways to raise money through Bitcoin and crypto and keep it from being frozen. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. They would freeze, like, if you know who the people are that are giving you the money and you're sure they want to give the money to these truckers, fucking give it to them. It's not illegal. It shouldn't be illegal. I think it's ridiculous.
That was pretty awesome when they froze the GoFundMe money. Sure, it's one thing to refund it, to give them the money back, but another thing to freeze it and say, that's bad money. You're bad money. Dan, Eve, your thoughts about the exciting...
Exactly. Couldn't agree with you more. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Sure thing. Dan, Eve, your thoughts on the fundraiser gone wrong?
Well, I think the part of it that went wrong was because obviously, Bitcoin is censorship resistant money. But that, obviously that's completely peer to peer and worldwide and yada, yada, yada. And it's hard money. But it's this particular method still relied on third parties. And that's always where the kink in the chain is, right? And so as much as they're really well organized and there was a 25-page dossier on how the distribution method was going to work,
and they were going to smash the printer with the sharpest pruning.
Yeah,
sheet.
Dude, I was like, they were going to wipe their iPhones twice and then chop them up into little bits and then microwave them. I'm like, dude, that seems like a little overkill, but I don't know. I got to go to Martin. Like, Martin, is that overkill? Or can I just wipe my phone and then chop it up with pliers? Like, how much do I need to do to make sure the FBI can't find my data? Like, how much do I have to do?
Reset to factory settings. That will probably do enough the job.
They recommended 2 resets. Get this, 2 resets to factory settings. Dan, did you read this? 2
I don't
resets.
think it matters though, because Facebook and Apple and everybody else already have copies of every message and everything. So I mean, it's not like your physical device even matters that much, right? I'm not sure, but I certainly wouldn't trust that they don't have.
Yeah, they would have had to use a messaging service, and there's probably, in ways of that being that end-to-end messaging being compromised, especially if it was shared with multiple parties. And then if one person, drops the ball, then that drops the ball for everyone's, messages essentially. So yeah, I think whilst it's cool, I actually think that they did it slightly the wrong way around, in that the distributed effort should have been done first, right? Going out to these truckers at the protests, getting them to set up wallets, and then people would donate, wallets, and they would have like a stack of these wallets that are verified kind of publicly, maybe on Twitter or something like that. I don't know, for each wallet and each truck with a license plate number, something like that.
There's ways to do this, like over Ethereum or Rootstock, where it's easy to like make votes and things. It's not rocket science. We don't have to trust in any centralized authority. It's easy.
Yeah, but I think
they could even distribute it as you went along. Like once they reach $1,000, it sends everyone $1. Once it reaches 2,000, it sends everyone $1. There's no reason to hoard the money in a big pile other than to get that headline to say that you raised X amount of dollars. That's a really nice headline.
But they could still get that headline anyway, because you have the total amount right before it gets split, and as you're saying, it goes to X and then they get Y and then it goes to Y.
Unless you're really smart and you start donating that money back to your fundraiser, and now it looks like your fundraiser is just growing infinitely as everyone redonates all the money. But
yeah, the issue with that though is like the governance and stuff. So I mean, with some of the other DAOs and things, there's been issues with this. So I mean, with the truckers, we could try to assign an individual, like an address to each of them, and like one truck entitles you to one vote, I guess, kind of like Satoshi's
One
cookie,
truck,
vote,
one
but-
vote. One truck, one vote.
But I mean, it's easier said than done in general. But I think what GoFundMe did is bullshit. And I think that anyone that had their money tied up there for a period of time, there is a time value to money, should fucking sue them, man. It's ridiculous. What they did is wrong. And I'm just telling you, as a money services business, if I did that shit in America, they'd fucking be hammering at my door tomorrow morning. So like stealing people's money, not okay.
I hate to say it too, but like the sector, like obviously GoFundMe, they're they've bowed to lots of other different pressures. But the Christian crowdfunding site, two things: one, God didn't stop them getting hacked, and two, didn't stop them from getting raided by Due South and the Mountie crew. So like,
I think the Catholic Church is the highest revenue business in the world.
In the world.
Yeah.
You go to, it's crazy. You go to St. Peter's and the St. Peter's, the Basilica and stuff, and you just see like gold coated stuff. And then like you see all this poverty around the world, and you're like, couldn't they just sell just a little bit of it? Why don't they do a few little auctions, sell some little bits off, and it will still go to museums and stuff? But we can, work a little bit towards hunger. But let's not go down that route.
And they can pay for these tax abuse victims.
Exactly. So, but yeah, so I think ultimately, I don't think it's they're showing the fallibility of Bitcoin, because it's just demonstrating the fallibility of a trusted third party service, and and not a non-trustless service. So ultimately, whilst it was a good effort, unfortunately it didn't work out. I kind of think it's a good thing, because it still has the ignorant people thinking, Bitcoin's not completely it is fallible, when actually this P2P money isn't actually fallible from a hacking perspective. You can't just hack. Obviously you can put a gun to someone's head, but you can't hack someone's actual wallet, and no one's hacked the network yet. So I think it's still strong. Still got a crazy up rate of like 99.999 ding dong %. And this is just another real world test of integrating trusted third parties and a trustless monetary system.
Well, I would agree that even though we know that Bitcoin didn't fail, there's only so many of these crowdfunding attempts that we can completely miff before the public is going to lose their faith in the uncensorability of Bitcoin. It seems once again, these libertarian ideas, they work well when they're computer programs, where we can say on the code, these are going to go to these wallets and so forth, and we're going to shred the printer and all these instructions and so forth. But then there's separate of that, there's time, which they ran out of time. Maybe their plan was too complex. Maybe they, as well as I said,
sometimes there's issues with implementation and execution. Like it should work like this, but it works like that, and now all of a sudden there's issues. So it's not so simple. But
I think this
people
gets
are going
back
to blame
governance,
Bitcoin and crypto if
Mike
we
was
do it
saying.
wrong.
Exactly. And governance, like Mike was saying, with these new DAOs, the attempt to have online governance, voting, proposals, all of these structures. Again, we're talking about government. We're talking about a social contract where people come together and they give up some of their rights in order to gain other rights and privileges that they get from working together, right? And the libertarians might not be so into that. And maybe the anti-vax truckers might not be so into that. If the first thing they said when you arrived at the protest was, hey, sign up on this piece of paper, give us your phone number, your truck address, and your Bitcoin address, and just started checking people in, people would be freaked out. They're like, I'm here to protest. I'm not here to join some organization. But that's what I've always felt about protest. It should be
which truck do you support exactly? Can we get that Ethereum token? This one's a little better than that one. And
maybe he wants his donations in Dogecoin. But Martine, what do you think about this? They have these great ideas. They describe
I think the Dogecoins are somewhere off in space. You can collect them in Mars.
You can collect the Dogecoins, and then at the end of the day, nobody gets any Dogecoin, not even the truckers.
It's a typical example of a central point of failure. When we started with Bitcoin, everybody said, don't trust, verify. So you're a trucker, and the first thing you do is you trust this guy to handle your Bitcoin. So yeah, it was bound to fail in a way. For GoFundMe, I think it's like really like scammy website. If you look at all those GoFundMe listings, most of them are just pure scams. So they have
take
no
like
right.
20 or 30% or some ridiculous amount. I've donated before to them for some like marijuana movement things, and like people only get a fraction of the money at the end. I agree. They're
Yes.
very scammy.
So
Well,
this,
I used to lend money on BTC Jam, and it was an ultimate disaster as well. People took the money, they didn't pay it back, and I can imagine it's just as bad in these crowdfunding sites.
there's even a South Park episode about GoFundMe. So if they made it to South Park, you can't trust them. No, but
it's fucked.
it is a typical example of trusting a third party with your Bitcoin, and then the trusted third party hands over the private keys because, hey, I don't want to get arrested. So there's something to learn from this, that we shouldn't trust a third party with our Bitcoin, and this is why people should learn to keep their private keys